Master your shadow. Master your mind. We all have a hidden side. It's not just our flaws or weaknesses. It's the part of us we've ignored or repressed, the shadow. It lives within, casting a long influence over our behavior, decisions, and relationships. Understanding it can be the key to personal transformation. The shadow. What it really is. The shadow is an essential concept in Carl Jung's psychological theory. Jung believed that the shadow represents all that we are not, or have refused to accept in ourselves. It's composed of all the traits we push away in order to meet society's standards, but it still exerts its power in our daily lives. Jung was clear that the shadow is not some abstract or theoretical idea. It is a real force, one that manifests in every decision, every interaction, and every emotional response. It's composed of the parts of ourselves that we disown or push into the unconscious, often because they don't align with societal expectations, family norms, or our ideal self-image. But just because we repress these aspects doesn't mean they go away. In fact, they grow stronger, gaining power over us when we refuse to face them. The judgmental part of us. We all have an inner critic that judges others. But it often reflects a part of us that we cannot accept, our own imperfections, flaws, or moral failings. The aggression we refuse to express. When we suppress anger, frustration, or the need to assert ourselves, we end up living in a state of internal tension, which can erupt unpredictably. The unacknowledged desires we deny, hidden beneath our socially acceptable desires, lie deeper, more primal needs. Desires for control, dominance, or recognition that we often bury to fit into the mold society prescribes. What we refuse to see in ourselves shows up in our behavior in subtle ways. We judge others harshly for traits we refuse to acknowledge within ourselves, or we feel triggered by people who exhibit the very qualities we deny in our own lives. Repression, the root of our struggles. Repression isn't a conscious decision. It happens automatically. From a young age, we are conditioned to behave in ways that meet the expectations of others, whether those expectations come from parents, teachers, society, or our own internalized standards. And when we fail to meet those expectations, we hide or suppress the parts of ourselves that we deem unworthy or unacceptable. This is where the shadow begins to form. Repression is a psychological defense mechanism that keeps us from feeling the full weight of negative emotions. It's how we survive difficult circumstances without being overwhelmed. However, the more we repress, the more energy gets trapped in our unconscious mind. Over time, this builds up and starts to affect our lives in negative ways, as the shadow becomes more powerful and more difficult to control. When we repress certain feelings, whether it's anger, sadness, jealousy, or fear, we start to build a mask, a persona that hides our true selves from the world. This persona is often built on the idea of acceptability. We become who we think we are, supposed to be, in order to survive in society. But by doing so, we lose touch with our authentic selves. The more we hide, the more disconnected we become from the truth of who we are. For example, someone who represses their anger may appear calm on the surface, but will experience bursts of rage at inappropriate times. The repressed anger needs an outlet, and when we deny it, it often leaks out through passive-aggressive behavior or emotional outbursts. The energy of the repressed emotion doesn't disappear. It just finds a way to express itself, often in distorted or unhealthy forms. The cost of avoiding the shadow. The consequences of ignoring the shadow are profound. When we fail to confront it, the repressed aspects manifest in our actions, often in destructive ways. This is why many people struggle with repeating negative patterns in their relationships, careers, or personal development. When we refuse to look at the shadow, we perpetuate the unconscious patterns that keep us stuck. The shadow is like a shadowy figure lurking behind us, influencing our choices and actions without us even realizing it. We feel anxious or triggered by seemingly unrelated events, because the emotional energy from repressed parts of ourselves is unconsciously running the show. If you find yourself stuck in a cycle of self-sabotage, frustration, or feeling disconnected from your authentic self, the root cause may be an unresolved shadow. For example, someone with a repressed desire for power might struggle in relationships where they feel disempowered. They may constantly seek validation from others, or find themselves in relationships where they feel dominated or controlled. This dynamic is created by the unconscious projection of the shadow, the energy of unacknowledged desires coming to the surface in ways that don't align with the true self. Another common manifestation of avoiding the shadow is projection. Projection happens when we project our own unresolved feelings or traits onto others. For instance, if someone is struggling with insecurity and doesn't acknowledge it, they may see others as arrogant or self-centered. The feelings are not really about the other person, but about the insecurity they are avoiding in themselves. Projection allows the shadow to control us because we don't own the feelings or behaviors that are really ours. The more we avoid confronting our shadow, the more it controls our behavior and shapes our reality. We find ourselves stuck in patterns that don't align with our true desires and values. And the longer we avoid doing the inner work, the harder it becomes to break free, confronting the shadow. The first step to self-mastery. Confronting the shadow is not easy. It requires courage, honesty, and a willingness to face parts of ourselves that we've long avoided. But it is the first and most essential step toward achieving self-mastery. Awareness. Seeing the hidden you. Before you can master the shadow, you must first acknowledge it. This is where most people fall short. They fail to see the shadow at all. The first step toward overcoming it is to recognize that it exists. Only when we shine a light on the dark corners of our psyche can we begin to understand and integrate the energy we've been suppressing. Awareness is key. Often, our shadow shows up in our reactions to others. When we feel intense emotions, whether anger, jealousy, or frustration, these feelings are often projections of our own unresolved issues. If someone's behavior triggers us, it's an opportunity to ask, why does this upset me? What am I seeing in them that I can't accept in myself? This awareness helps us recognize when we're projecting our shadow and allows us to reclaim that energy for ourselves. The role of projection. Projection is one of the most common ways the shadow shows up.
If this content is making sense to you, click the subscribe button and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for your support.
It's a defense mechanism, a way of protecting the ego from uncomfortable truths. Instead of facing our own flaws, we project them onto others, seeing traits in others that we refuse to acknowledge in ourselves. This keeps us from fully owning the shadow, as we continually disown the parts of ourselves we find unappealing. Projection allows the shadow to grow unchecked. When we project our own negative traits onto others, we don't have to deal with the uncomfortable reality that they exist within us. For example, if you frequently criticize others for being arrogant, it might be a sign that you harbor feelings of insecurity or pride that you're unwilling to face. The anger and judgment directed outward are, in fact, a reflection of the unresolved anger and judgment within. Projection also prevents us from truly understanding others. When we project our fears, insecurities, and desires onto others, we no longer see them as they truly are. We see them through the lens of our own unresolved shadow. This distorts our perception of reality, preventing us from forming genuine connections with others. Integration, bringing the shadow into the light. The next step after awareness is integration. Once we see the shadow, we must accept it and bring it into our conscious awareness. Integration is not about eliminating the shadow. It's about embracing it. This means acknowledging that our anger, jealousy, and other repressed emotions are part of us, not something we need to deny or reject. Integration involves ownership. You begin to own your feelings and behaviors without judgment or shame. Instead of reacting automatically to triggers, you become more mindful of your emotional responses and understand where they come from. This doesn't mean you approve of the negative traits within you, but rather you accept that they are a natural part of being human. They don't define you, but they are aspects of yourself that deserve attention. For example, if you've repressed your anger for years, integrating it involves finding a healthy outlet for that anger. Instead of bottling it up or letting it explode in unhealthy ways, you learn to express it constructively, whether through physical activity, art, or open communication. By integrating the shadow, you reclaim the energy that was once tied up in repression and use it for personal growth. The liberation of self-acceptance. True liberation comes through self-acceptance. When we accept ourselves fully, both the light and the dark, we free ourselves from the need to hide or suppress parts of our personality. Self-acceptance allows us to live authentically, without fear of judgment or rejection. It enables us to be fully present with ourselves, without the need for constant validation from others. The act of embracing the shadow is an act of self-love. When you love yourself, you stop denying your imperfections. You stop pretending to be someone you're not, and instead, you allow yourself to be human. This acceptance does not mean resignation. It means acknowledging that you are enough just as you are. It means that your flaws and mistakes do not define your worth, and that you have the power to change and grow. Living in self-acceptance means that you no longer have to hide your true self. You can step into the world with confidence, knowing that you are whole and complete. This shift in mindset is the foundation of self-mastery, the ability to control your emotions, actions, and reactions without being driven by unconscious patterns or shadow influences. Embracing the shadow, unlocking its power for transformation. The shadow is not an enemy. It's a powerful ally that, when understood, can lead to profound transformation. The very aspects we fear or hide often contain the seeds for our greatest growth. Instead of fearing it, we can embrace it, integrate it, and unlock its latent power to help us evolve into the person we are truly meant to become. The hidden power of the shadow. Jung believed that the shadow is the source of much of our untapped potential. When we face our fears, insecurities, and flaws, we realize that they are not just negative traits. They are energy waiting to be harnessed. By acknowledging and confronting the shadow, we gain access to that energy, transforming it into creativity, vitality, and purpose. For example, anger, often viewed as destructive, can be a powerful force for change. When we are angry, we are often expressing a deep-seated need for justice, respect, or change. This powerful energy, when channeled constructively, can help us assert our boundaries, motivate us to take action, and push us toward meaningful transformation. The challenge is not to suppress the anger, but to understand its roots and direct it in ways that empower us and those around us. Likewise, vulnerability, often seen as a weakness, is one of the greatest strengths of the human experience. By embracing vulnerability, we allow ourselves to be seen authentically, creating deeper emotional connections with others. Vulnerability opens the door to empathy, compassion, and intimacy. The more we embrace vulnerability, the more we connect with others on a profound level, allowing us to experience true intimacy. These aspects of the shadow, once feared and avoided, can now be seen as fuel for transformation. The hidden parts of ourselves are not meant to be repressed. They are meant to be understood, integrated, and used to fuel our growth and authenticity. Shadow as a creative force. The shadow is a wellspring of creativity. Our unexpressed desires, repressed emotions, and hidden talents lie within the shadow. When we choose to confront the shadow and release its energy, we unlock an infinite source of creativity. This is why many great artists, musicians, writers, and thinkers have explored their shadow to fuel their work. In fact, many creative breakthroughs are the result of confronting inner turmoil, pain, or conflict. By channeling the shadow, artists create masterpieces that resonate with others because they touch on the raw, unfiltered human experience. Think of the most impactful art, literature, and music. Often, they were born from the artist's deep confrontation with their inner darkness. Likewise, in our personal lives, embracing the shadow can help us tap into hidden talents, passions, and skills that we may have repressed due to fear of failure or judgment. For example, someone who has always feared being too loud or attention-seeking might find that embracing their inner confidence allows them to become a more effective speaker, leader, or advocate. The key is in acknowledging the repressed desire for attention and channeling that energy into positive, life-affirming actions. When we integrate the shadow, we transform the energy that was once directed inward in destructive ways and redirect it outward in ways that benefit both ourselves and others. This integration allows us to express our true creative potential and contribute to the world in a way that feels authentic and fulfilling. Facing the dark to find the light. The shadow's greatest power lies in its ability to guide us toward balance. For so long, we may have viewed the shadow as something to be feared or avoided, but in truth, it is a necessary component of our human experience. Without darkness, there is no light. Without struggle, there is no strength. By confronting the shadow, we learn to find balance between our light and dark aspects. Jung's journey of self-knowledge was a continual process of shadow work. embracing his unconscious, acknowledging his fears and desires, and using them to guide his life's work. Jung understood that self-realization requires confronting the darkness within, and it was through this confrontation that he became one of the most influential thinkers of his time. His work demonstrates that the path to wholeness is not through avoiding the shadow, but by embracing it fully. The shadow teaches us that we cannot separate the good from the bad, the light from the dark. In doing so, we become more whole. We stop living fragmented lives, where we are constantly battling between our ideals and our impulses. The integration of the shadow allows us to step into life with greater confidence, knowing that we are fully human, with all the complexity and contradictions that entails. When we face our shadow, we create a space within ourselves where both light and dark can coexist. The process of integration requires acceptance of both the parts of ourselves we consider good and those we deem bad. In this acceptance, we find wholeness, peace, and a deep sense of inner balance. The call to integrate the shadow. The call to integrate the shadow is a call to wholeness. By accepting all parts of ourselves, we stop living in fragments. We become aligned, authentic, and true to who we are at our core. Integration of the shadow is not a one-time event. It is an ongoing process. Each day, as we confront new experiences, challenges, and emotions, we are invited to engage in the practice of integrating the shadow. Each time we face an uncomfortable emotion or situation, we have the opportunity to ask ourselves, what part of me is being triggered by this? What can I learn from this experience? By engaging in this process continuously, we become more empowered. We stop running from our fears and discomforts and instead learn from them. The more we embrace our shadows, the more we reclaim the energy that was once used to repress them. This reclaimed energy then serves as fuel for our growth, creativity, and success. The shadow doesn't have to remain a hidden part of us. We can choose to make it an integral part of who we are, a tool for our personal transformation. By integrating the shadow, we stop allowing it to control us through unconscious behavior, and instead use it to shape our lives consciously. The liberation of the true self. Mastering the shadow for personal growth. Mastering the shadow is not an endpoint. It is the beginning of a lifelong journey towards self-liberation. The shadow, once integrated, reveals its greatest gift, the true self. This self is free, authentic, and unencumbered by the limitations of unconscious patterns. The true self, what lies beneath the shadow. The true self is the core of who we are, untainted by the social masks we wear or the roles we play. It's the part of us that is whole, not fragmented. It is the person we are when we stop performing for others or hiding from ourselves. To connect with the true self, we must first let go of the beliefs, fears, and societal pressures that keep us in the shadows. This requires self-compassion and the willingness to shed the layers that have accumulated over a lifetime. The true self is not a static or fixed entity. It evolves as we grow, heal, and expand our consciousness. It is the essence of who we were before we adopted the false personas we've worn throughout our lives. By shedding these masks, we can rediscover our deepest desires, values, and purpose. The power of authenticity. When you live in alignment with your true self, you unlock an immense power, the power of authenticity. Authenticity allows you to set boundaries without guilt, speak your truth without fear of judgment, make choices that honor your deepest desires and needs. Authenticity doesn't mean being perfect. It means being real, embracing all aspects of yourself, both light and dark, and using them to guide your journey. Authenticity is the freedom to express who you are without the need for validation or approval from others. Living authentically requires courage. It means being vulnerable and embracing your imperfections. It means being honest with yourself and others about what you want and need in life. When you live authentically, you align with your purpose and step into your personal power. Facing fear, the path to true freedom. One of the greatest challenges in mastering the shadow is facing the fear that comes with change. The unconscious patterns we've developed over time feel safe, even if they're harmful. But freedom lies in stepping beyond the familiar. Fear of rejection can keep us from being truly seen. Fear of failure can prevent us from taking bold steps toward growth. However, when we face these fears, we learn that they are illusions, constructs built by our shadow. The true self is fearless because it knows that rejection and failure are part of the human experience. They are not threats to our worth. The true self understands that mistakes and setbacks are part of the journey. It is not afraid to fail because it sees failure as an opportunity to learn and grow. When we embrace our fears and move through them, we experience true freedom, the freedom to be ourselves without fear of judgment or failure. Living a life of purpose and fulfillment. The true self doesn't just react to life, it creates. It acts with purpose, knowing that each choice is an opportunity to express one's authentic nature. When you master the shadow, you gain clarity and the ability to move with intention. You can step into the world as a force for good, contributing from a place of alignment and authenticity. Living a life of purpose means aligning your actions with your values and desires. It means setting goals that are in harmony with your true self and taking inspired action to bring them to life. When you live with purpose, you experience fulfillment because you know that your life has meaning and that you are contributing to something greater than yourself. Purpose is not something you find outside of yourself. It is something you uncover from within. When you connect with your true self, you begin to understand your unique gifts and how to use them to make a positive impact in the world. The final step, mastery of the shadow for personal growth. Mastering. The shadow means mastering your mind, your emotions, and your life. It's about fully embracing who you are with all your complexities, strengths, and weaknesses. It's not a one-time effort. It's an ongoing process of self-awareness, growth, and self-compassion. With each step, you become more aligned with your true self, more capable of living a life filled with meaning and purpose. In embracing the shadow, we reclaim our power. And in doing so, we unlock the potential to create a life that is truly our own. The journey of self-mastery requires continual effort, but the rewards are immeasurable. The more we integrate the shadow and align with our true self, the more we experience personal growth, peace, and fulfillment. We become the authors of our own lives, free from the limitations of unconscious patterns, and empowered to live in alignment with our highest potential. Conclusion: the freedom of self-mastery. Mastery of the shadow leads to freedom. Freedom from the unconscious patterns that have held us back, and freedom to live as our true selves. This is the journey towards self-mastery, where you are no longer ruled by the past, but empowered by your authenticity. By confronting and embracing your shadow, you begin the process of liberating yourself. You are no longer bound by the limitations of unconscious behavior, and you can live a life that is truly aligned with who you are meant to be.